in the mirror. The girl in the mirror was always there. She was always watching me. I could feel her eyes on me, even when I couldn't see her. I first noticed her when I was 10 years old. I was getting ready for bed and I caught a glimpse of her in the mirror. She was standing behind me, her face hidden in the shadows. I turned around, but she was gone. I thought I was imagining things, but then I started seeing her more and more often. She would always be in the mirror, watching me. I would try to ignore her, but it was impossible. She was always there, lurking in the shadows. I started to have nightmares about her. In my dreams, she would chase me, her eyes filled with hatred. I would wake up screaming, my heart pounding. I told my parents about the girl in the mirror, but they didn't believe me. They said it was just my imagination. But I knew it wasn't my imagination. She was real. I started to avoid mirrors. I would shower with my eyes closed, and I would never look at myself in the mirror when I was getting dressed. But even when I wasn't looking at her, I could feel her presence. I started to get sick. I lost my appetite, and I couldn't sleep. I was always tired and anxious. I knew it was because of the girl in the mirror. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the mirror and faced her. "Who are you?" I demanded. She didn't say anything. She just stared at me with her cold, dark eyes. "Why are you haunting me?" I asked. She still didn't say anything. I reached out and touched the mirror. As soon as my fingers made contact with the glass, she disappeared. I stood there for a long time, staring at the empty mirror. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew that I was finally free. I never saw the girl in the mirror again, but I never forgot her. She taught me that there are things in this world that we don't understand, things that are dark and twisted and terrifying, things that can haunt us for the rest of our lives. But I also learned that we can overcome our fears. We can face them head on and defeat them. We can be stronger than they are. I'm not sure why the girl in the mirror haunted me. Maybe she was a figment of my imagination. Maybe she was a ghost. Maybe she was something else entirely. But I don't care. I'm just glad she's gone. I'm not afraid of her anymore. The creeping rot. I woke up one morning to find that my fingers had turned green. I stared at them in disbelief. They were a sickly shade of green, and they looked like they were covered in mold. I tried to rub the green off, but it wouldn't come off. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom to take a closer look. The green was spreading up my arms. It was also starting to spread to my chest. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was scared. I called my doctor, but he didn't know what was wrong with me either. He ran some tests, but they didn't show anything. The green continued to spread. It was now up to my neck. I could feel it crawling under my skin. It was like something was eating me alive. I went to see a specialist, but he was just as baffled as my doctor. He told me that he had never seen anything like it before. I was starting to lose hope. I didn't know what to do. I was afraid that I was going to die. And one night I had a dream. In the dream, I was standing in a dark forest. There was a creature in the forest. It was tall and thin, with long, sharp claws. The creature was covered in green fur. The creature stared at me with its glowing red eyes. I knew that it was the one that was making me sick. The creature reached out and touched my arm. I felt the green rot spreading from its touch. I woke up screaming. The green rot was now all over my body. I was covered in it. I knew that I didn't have much time left. I had to find a way to stop the rot. I went back to the forest where I had seen the creature in my dream. I searched for hours, but I couldn't find it. I was about to give up when I heard a noise. I turned around and saw the creature standing in front of me. The creature smiled, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. I knew that this was it. This was my last chance. I took a deep breath and charged at the creature. I swung my fist, but the creature dodged it easily. The creature struck back, its claws slashing through my flesh. I felt the pain, but I didn't give up. I kept fighting, even though I knew that I was outmatched. I had to stop the rot. Finally, I managed to land a punch that knocked the creature to the ground. I jumped on top of it and started to pound it with my fists. The creature struggled, but I was too strong. I kept pounding until the creature stopped moving. I stood up, exhausted. I had done it. I had stopped the rot. I looked down at my body. The green rot was gone. I was healed. I didn't know how I had done it, but I was grateful. I had survived. I walked out of the forest and into the sunlight. I took a deep breath of fresh air. I was alive. I didn't know what the future held, but I was determined to live it to the fullest. I had survived the creeping, and I was not going to let anything else take me down. I walked away from the forest, knowing that I would never forget what had happened there. But I also knew that I would never let it define me. I was strong, I was survivor, and I would never give up. The waking, I woke up with a start. I was lying on the ground in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know how I got there. I looked around. I was surrounded by trees. The sun was shining, but it was a cold, harsh light. I tried to stand up, but I was too weak. I sat back down and tried to remember what had happened. I remembered going to a party the night before. I had been drinking, and I had a vague memory of leaving the party with someone I didn't know. But after that, everything was blank. I didn't know how I had gotten here or who had brought me. I started to panic. I was all alone and I didn't know what to do. I tried to calm down and think rationally. I needed to find a way to get help. I stood up and started walking. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to keep moving. I walked for hours, but I didn't see anyone. I was starting to lose hope. Just when I was about to give up, I saw something in the distance. It was a small cabin. I ran towards the cabin, hoping that someone was there who could help me. As I got closer, I saw that the cabin was abandoned. The windows were boarded up, and the door was hanging off its hinges. I hesitated. I didn't want to go inside, but I didn't have any other choice. I took a deep breath and opened the door. The cabin was dark and dusty. It looked like no one had been there in years. I walked through the cabin, calling out for help. But there was no answer. I was starting to lose hope again. I was about to turn around and leave when I heard a noise. It was a faint noise, but it was definitely there. It sounded like someone was crying. I followed the sound to a back room. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see a figure huddled in the corner. I slowly opened the door and stepped inside. The figure was a young woman. She was covered in bruises, and her clothes were torn. She looked up at me, and I saw that her eyes were filled with fear. "Help me," she whispered. I didn't know what to do. I had never seen anything like this before. "I'm here to help you," I said. "But we need to get out of here." I helped the woman to her feet. She was weak and frail, but she was able to walk. We left the cabin and started walking. I didn't know where we were going, but I knew that we had to keep moving. We walked for hours until we came to a road. I flagged down a car, and the driver agreed to take us to the nearest town. We arrived in town and went to the police station. I told the police what had happened, and they promised to investigate. The woman was taken to the hospital, and I was given a place to stay. I didn't know what had happened to the woman or who had hurt her, but I knew that I would never forget her, or the day I woke up in the middle of nowhere. The next day, I went back to the cabin. I wanted to see if I could find any clues about what had happened. I searched the cabin, but I didn't find anything. The only thing I found was a single piece of paper with a single word written on it: "Run." I didn't know what to make of it, but I knew that I had to get out of there. I left the cabin and never went back. I still think about the woman sometimes. I wonder what happened to her and who hurt her, but I also know that I'm lucky to be alive. I woke up in the middle of nowhere with no memory of how I got there, but I found a way to get help, and I escaped. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm not going to let what happened that day define me. I'm going to live my life to the fullest, and I'm not going to let fear control me.